Whether you're adding fresh basil to your pasta or garden mint to your mojito, fresh herbs are a must-have for summer. So Frankie Flowers is going to teach us everything we need to know to grow them. All right, Frankie, what are your favorite herbs and how do you use them?
Well, you know what? First off, if you just put fresh herbs into any recipe, you tell your friends, I'm harvesting them out of the garden and bringing them indoors, they think you know what you're doing even if you don't know what you're doing. So that's the first thing. Some of my favorite herbs that are out there, of course, rosemary is one of my go-tos. Rosemary is something that I use for lamb often. You mentioned about basil and sauces, but basil as well for a caprese salad, fantastic, of course. And even just on a sandwich, like a nice tomato sandwich. Flat leaf parsley. I'm always more the Italian flat leaf parsley over any other parsley that's out there. You can use that in tabbouleh, but even in just some salads. We mentioned about mint as well. Mint for mojitos, of course, but mint as well. A nice fresh salad with watermelon, some mint and feta. Oh, boom. Mint always grow in a pot. That thing there can grow everywhere. And then oregano. Oregano is something that can be used fresh and or dried. But those are kind of my top 5. And you can see that I really tend to like growing my herbs in larger pots. So I have full pots of each of my favorite types.
Oh, I like that. And then you just go out to the yard and you pick them and add them to your recipes and it's all fresh. So where is the best place to grow herbs in general? I know you like doing them in containers, but where should they be?
Full sun. So if they're in full sun, that's kind of the key for herbs to be successful, especially basil, rosemary, oregano. However, this is the one challenging herb for everybody out there, and that is cilantro. Cilantro is one of those herbs that when it starts to get hot outdoors, and if it's planted in full sun, it bolts. This is the bolting that's there, and anytime that you see that stem that comes up, you got to remove that because that's going to take away from the flavor. Cilantro, though, is one of those ones can be planted in more part sun. So even morning sun will do better. Same with dill. These two guys here are cool crop lovers, cool temperatures, so they'll do a little bit better in more shaded locations. But for the majority of herbs, full sun and well-drained soil. In containers, make sure you have drainage as well.
And can you back up and just do, like, in layman's terms for Tracy? Like, what do you mean by bolt? Like, does that mean, like, one thing,
Bolt.
one stalk just goes crazy? I've never heard that before.
So what it means when something bolts is all of a sudden you have a nice little lush kind of growth that's happening, and then you have this spike that comes right out of the center. That's what's called bolting. What happens with bolting is it develops a flower. You can see that the flower that's there, that then will develop into a seed. If you allow that to go to flower and seed, that will all put the energy to that stem and take away from all the flavor below. So that's why herbs, to make herbs always last, you want to constantly be harvesting your herbs. Even when you don't need them, you want to go over there and you just want to give them haircuts and just cut them back because that fresh new growth is what's going to be out there that's going to continue that flavor, and all herbs will bolt and or go to flower. And if you're having too many herbs and you just want to kind of store them, all you have to do is just store them just like there. And like with parsley, you saw how rough I was. I just went ahead and cut. But there is with basil, what I would really recommend to you, if you are doing some harvesting of herbs, morning is the best time. You're going to want to go down to the stem, and right above where the branches are just bracketing their way out, that is where you're going to want to cut right there. And by cutting right there, you're going to stimulate that additional growth that's out, and you're going to have wonderful herbs all season long.
Okay, these are great tips for allowing your herb plants to thrive. Anything else we want to do to make sure that they are growing the way they should?
Yeah, so this is a container, right? And the container's planted. This is actually, this rosemary I had from last year. So this is now getting to be a 2-year-old plant. How did I make it survive? Well, fertilizer is always key. I use something like a slow-release fertilizer, but you can use a water-soluble as well. Because they are in a container, there's no nutrient because it's in a potting soil. So you do need to fertilize. So I usually pick my 5 top herbs. I put them in big pots. I put them always close, and my barbecue is just right around the corner from here. I put them close to the kitchen, in sun, so that I'm always having that fresh flavor. And then my friends actually think I know what I'm doing.
You look like you know what you're doing. Okay, so you talked about harvesting them. You're harvesting them constantly, storing them, put them in water in the house. Anything else that we need to do to make sure they last? Do you ever do the wet paper towels and throw them in the fridge? You ever do that?
You can do that. On the counter, I always find that this is the best way. It actually looks quite cute in mason jars. Yeah. And then at the end of the season, if you have too much, we can always blend them, and we can freeze them into small little cubes, the parsley, the basil, and things like that. And then in the wintertime, you can actually take those cubes and just pop them into your sauces and different things that you're using as well. And for mixology, of course, all these guys here, you know, there's nothing like basil, strawberries, with a little bit of gin, and some club soda. That there is a party.
That guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Frankie, thank you for that. That was good. and everyone at home. Remember, if you have a gardening question for Frankie, he's here. Email them to us at submissions@cityline.tv.